Welcome back to another episode of Coding with Kevin. Today we're diving into EventSource and Server-Sent Events. It's a really cool introduction if you're just starting to explore the world of pub/sub. We won't be diving into the advanced things like WebSockets, Socket.io, the different protocols and stuff like that. However, we will be learning how to listen to server-sent events in real time, rather than just creating constant API calls from the client to the server. So if you find this valuable, give me a thumbs up. It really helps a lot. Subscribe if you've enjoyed a few of my content videos before. I really appreciate you guys. Let's dive in. All right, we'll start off doing npx create React app, and we'll call it event source. Let that do its thing. All right, once it's done building, hop into the project, and this is what you're going to see. Typical React bones structure that we got. We're going to go ahead, get rid of everything in here and just replace it with an empty div. We're going to say hello. We're going to get rid of everything up here, save, and now, also, I have down here in the terminal done npm run start. That starts our React project. It sets up a development server, and then it should open whatever browser is default to localhost 3000, and then you can see the word hello right there. Excellent. So now we're going to go back into our project, right click on the source folder, click new file. We're going to call it component.js. Inside here, we're going to do const, we're going to call it event component. Oops, missed the arrow there. Awesome. Now we're going to export default event component. We're going to have it return div, and that's going to say hello there. Now we're going to go back to our app.js. Get rid of this. We're going to have just the event component. We can see it's listed right there. Hit enter. It automatically imports it for us. We're going to close it out, hit save, and we can see hello there is in our browser. Awesome. So why we did that is because I wanted to use a functional component. I really like being able to use things like use state and use effect. The React class components are great. I do still use them for many things. However, just the ease of functional components, it's pretty awesome. So on line 2, we're going to go ahead and create a use state. Let me call it const. We're going to have message and set message. We're going to have the equal to use state. Hit enter, so it automatically imports it for us. Enter, enter. Now we're going to use effect. Hit enter, so it automatically imports it for us. Love it. So we're going to have an arrow function in here. We'll put on line 8, our square brackets, just so we don't forget. So we're going to create another const, and we're going to call it event source. And it's going to be equal to new event source. Now, event source, it takes a URL. We're going to have it equal to a string. It's going to be essentially whatever your local host is, right? So you could literally just go in here, do control copy, if you're on a Windows computer, paste it in. This is the URL we want it listening to. We want it listening to, however, a / events. Now we're going to do just a quick if-else statement. So if type of event source is not exactly equal to a string of undefined, then we're going to log, yay, else we're going to log a string of boo. All right, that's some fun there. So event source is listening on this URL, and we are assigning it to this variable event source. Sorry for the naming. Now, when we send a message from the server to the client, we'll send it in the form of a JSON object, right? And so it will be updated that, a JSON string is going to be sent from the server to the client. And that's why we have it as a string of undefined. So when that happens, when this string happens, the event source is going to recognize that as, oh, something happened. If it's a string, we're going to recognize it as on message. So it's going to be event source dot on message. Okay. So if we hover over it, it's not great information. It just says, yeah, message event. Awesome. So we're going to intake event, and we're going to have an arrow function, and eventually create another const. We'll call this event data. Now that's going to have to be parsed from a JSON string into a JSON object. So we're going to do JSON.parse event.data. And then we're going to take that and we're going to set that to our state, to our message state. So we're going to do set message. And it's going to be event data dot message. Perfect. Down here, we're going to go ahead and change this to be message in curly brackets. And we'll just have, I don't know, hello after it. But finally, in our use effect, we want to clean this up. So we're going to return a self-calling function, essentially, or callback, my apologies, of event source dot close, right? We're just going to close the connection when we're all done with it. Don't forget the semicolon there. So if we want to see that our message on the use state is set, we're going to do boogity. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Great. So it says boogity hello. Awesome. We'll get rid of that. We just wanted to verify that it works, right? Trust but verify. So now in this section down here, in essentially the top level of our project, we're going to right click, we're going to create a new file, and we're going to call it server.js. Now we're going to need to open up a new terminal window, and we're going to need to install a few things. The things that we want to install are going to be npm I express cores, and it should be good. We'll let that do its thing. Great. All right, so now we're on the server side. We're on the Node.js side of things, but we're using Express as the layer over Node.js. So we're going to do const express equals require express. Okay, boom. Next, we're going to do const cores equals require. Yep, there we go. Cores. And then finally, we're going to do const app equals express function. Cool. So cores is something that you really need to know about as a developer. It stands for cross origin response something something. let's Google it. Cores. Cross origin resource sharing. Okay, so if you're kind of in the beginner, junior, or mid-level developer, you've probably run across things like cores errors, right? So if we do cross origin, right? It's something that we all as developers have seen time and time again. Exactly. You're going to see cross origin request blocked, right? it's just a security thing in place that doesn't allow unknown or suspicious URL requests. For local development, we really want to be able to have our front end and our back end talk to each other. So that's why we install cores, just because it makes our life much easier. So we're going to do const cores options. We're going to have that equal to an object where our origin is going to equal a string of HTTP localhost 3001. Right. We're going to do app.listen. We're going to have that be on localhost 3000. We're going to have a callback where we're just going to do console.log. And we're going to print server is listening on port 3000. All right. So we're going to hit save, and we're actually going to stop our front end. Okay. I want to make sure that our backend works. So type in node server.js in our terminal. Oops, express is not defined. What? Oh, oops, I forgot an S. Yeah. Try this again. Great. So our server is technically running at this point. Like, we literally see server is running on port 3000. That's fantastic. That's exactly what we want. What we need to do on our front end, however, is we need to add something called a proxy in our package JSON. So this is essentially going to equal our localhost. Our localhost colon 3000. Now this proxy allows us to be able to talk to our server. We want to be able to listen to what's going on, but we also want to run our URL, our web app, right? So that's why we have the proxy there. Now let's do, we're going to do npm run start, and now it's going to tell us something's already running on localhost 3000, right? We do want to run it on another app instead. So we'll type yes, and then that's essentially going to forward the port to 3001. And so what did we do in our backend here? On our server, we made sure that our origin is going to be localhost 3001. Easy peasy. So we'll close this tab. We'll make sure this one keeps running, and we have hello sitting there. We're like 90% of the way done now. So we'll jump back over here into our server, and we're going to add a few things. We're going to do app.get. Now we're going to have that as a string of events. That's going to be the URL. We're going to have comma cores, which is going to be our cores options. We're going to fill that in there, comma, and then we're going to do rec, comma, res, request or response. And then we'll have an arrow function. Now there's a couple of really cool things that we're going to do here. We're going to do basic node programming right now for just this example, but there's a really cool thing that you should know. So Res.send, okay? .send is an Express.js function. So that allows things like the content type, the connection, just a bunch of headers to kind of already be filled in based on our client request sent to the server. All right. Res.write is Node.js. So a lot of the things with Res.write we don't get for granted with like we do with Res.send. So we'll actually need to go ahead and create a response called Res.write head. and we'll have a response status code of 200, and then an object. And I'm doing this low level because, you know, I'm a firm believer that, look, before you're able to call AAA to come and change your tire, you should know how to change a tire first. Before you hire a personal chef to cook your meals, you should know a little bit about cooking first, right? You should appreciate the things that allow your life to be easier, but you should know why you appreciate them. So that's why we're going to do Res.write head. We're going to hard code some things just so you understand what's going on behind the curtains. So our first is content-type. Now we're going to have that be equal to text /event stream. Have a comma there. Now we're going to do cache-control. And we're just going to have it be no cache. I'm not really going to dive into what these all mean. I highly recommend you research these. Our last one is going to be connection, and that's going to be keep alive. That one should be pretty intuitive, right? We want the connection between the back end and the front end to stay alive. So semicolon there. And now we're going to essentially send a server-side event every second. So we're going to create a set interval. And in there, we're going to have a callback function. And we're going to have const data. Now that's going to be equal to an object. That object is going to have a message in it. And that message is going to be backtick hello world. And then in parentheses, we're going to essentially have our $ curly brackets new date to ISO string. Okay, so this is just going to be like a clock, right? It's going to send us a new date all the way down to milliseconds, which we'll be able to see that update live because we're going to be sending this every second. So we need to log string of sent, data. And then finally, we're going to do res.write. So we have our headers written up here. Now we need to actually just say, what do we want to send to the client? It's going to be backticks, and it's going to be data and $ curly brackets, JSON.stringify our data. Okay. And then at the end, we're going to have a couple new line breaks. And then finally, on line 22, we're going to have a comma 1000. You should be aware that 1000 milliseconds equals 1 second. So we're setting an interval to send every second. Our data, which is a new date, we're going to log it in our console just to verify it's being sent, and then we're sending it to our front end. So we click save. The server's listening on port 3000. Let's stop the server and restart it just to make sure. Excellent. We're going to go here. We're going to click refresh. And there we go. We can now see it updating in real time. Our server-side event is just being recognized on the front end. And so this is, again, really cool because EventSource, I didn't dive into it, and we see it's being logged here in the server as well. Again, trust but verify, right? Now, EventSource is so helpful. It's really just dipping your toe into the world of a pub/sub application. Pub/sub uses things that are stuff like WebSockets, which allows the client and the backend to communicate. EventSource is just one direction. We're only listening to something from the server. So Something that it's useful for is like a loading bar. So if we weren't sending a date and instead we were sending a percentage, that's really informative for a user, right? It can be something sent from the server to update the user as to where we are in the progress. A WebSocket is really great for stuff like if you want a chatbot, you need the user to be able to type something into a specific area of your website, send it off to the server, and that notifies somebody else. And that's kind of a really good use case of PubSub. So I hope you liked our project today. Awesome. It's really exciting being able to actually listen to something from the server and do something on the client. It can be ways to just include some simplicity into your application if you don't want to dive too far into WebSockets and stuff like that. Sometimes it's overkill. So if you found this video helpful, give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already. I really appreciate you all for watching, and until next time, take care.